Hi, I'm Elias Gwinn, Applications Engineer with Benchmark Media Systems. This is an exclusive video for Audio Advisor. Today we're talking about the DAC-1 PRE. The DAC-1 PRE is Benchmark's 2-channel digital to analog converter, stereo preamplifier, computer interface, and headphone amplifier. The DAC-1 PRE can act as a preamplifier or it can be a standalone D to A converter. When it's acting as a preamplifier, the volume control is activated, and this is a true analog volume control, which means that it's actually a gain control circuit and it's not going to be limiting your signal to noise or dynamic range, as opposed to a digital volume control, which will limit your dynamic range and it will decrease your signal to noise ratio. The headphone amplifier is our signature HPA2 headphone amplifier. It's a reference grade 0 ohm output impedance headphone amplifier. The 0 ohm output impedance allows us to drive even low impedance headphones without having any distortion issues. The DAC-1 PRE has 6 stereo inputs, 5 digital and 1 analog stereo inputs. The digitals include toslink optical, USB, coaxial SPDIF, and there's 3 coaxial SPDIF inputs, stereo analog inputs. The USB input is our proprietary advanced USB interface, which is capable of 96 kilohertz, 24 bits using native drivers, which means that there's no custom drivers that you need to install, and that helps a lot with making sure that it's compatible. Everything is compatible, and it's also completely bit transparent. The analog output section includes our unbalanced RCA connectors and our balanced XLR connectors. This switch right here indicates whether or not the device is being operated as a preamp or as a standalone DAC. And what that means is it determines whether or not the volume control is actually being engaged. When it's in calibrated mode, that means it's a fixed level output. And that will be what you would use if it was just being sent to another preamplifier. When it's in variable mode, the volume control in the front will actually be in effect, which means that you can throttle more or less the output that's going to your amplifier. The DAC-1 PRE has an international power supply, which can be configured for 220 volt operation as simply as pulling this fuse drawer out, turning this part of the fuse drawer just 180 degrees, and putting it back in. The power supply is built around an internal toroidal low radiation transformer. It's capable of, the power supply is capable of achieving full performance even with a voltage lag or surge of plus or minus 30 volts, give or take. The DAC itself, the internal DAC circuit, is it's capable of 192 kilohertz 24-bit input. The USB input is 9624 capable, and the DAC, the actual performance of the DAC chip is the DAC circuit is completely state-of-the-art. It will achieve the same levels of performance as any other converter on the market at any price point. The biggest difference between our converter and most other converters is our ability to handle jitter. In fact, jitter doesn't affect the performance of this unit whatsoever. There's a special clocking circuit. It's a proprietary clocking circuit that we developed called UltraLock. And what UltraLock does is it takes the samples into a buffer. So basically it puts them in a holding tank and it strips the clock away from the circuit. Whenever the internal clock pulls the sample out of the holding tank, the clock from the source is no longer relevant. So the level of jitter is completely determined by our internal clock, which is an extremely low jitter clock. And that's what delivers the data to the D to A chip. So we achieve extremely low levels of jitter, and the amount of jitter coming from the source is absolutely irrelevant when it comes to the DAC-1. The analog circuitry of the DAC-1 has a 500 kilohertz bandwidth, which prevents any sort of intermodulation distortion with ultrasonic information, and that in conjunction with the jitter attenuation, the fact that there's negligible amounts of jitter distortion, and also the 24-bit USB interface, which prevents truncation, allow the DAC-1 to achieve unprecedented levels of purity and transparency so that the low levels of detail within the music can be heard with ease. I'm Elias Gwinn, Applications Engineer with Benchmark Media Systems, and this has been an exclusive video for Audio Advisor.